good evening, good afternoon, wherever you find yourselves in this weird, wild, wacky world of ours, and welcome to another exciting installment of Darkness in Dublin. This afternoon's scene will take place as the Hermetic apprentice Mara Rusu attempts to re-enter the Chantry. The Hermetic Chantry.
Of course.
Yeah.
Fine. Get to the front door. The Chantry looks dark. Everything seems to have been closed up. It looks like it's been abandoned.
It's been what, sorry?
Looks like the place has been abandoned.
Right, remind me again, what was the warning that was given? Or the notice, excuse me.
I can't actually remember. Evan, can you remember?
We're checking. One moment. It was you who posted it, for the record, Anthony, for Christ's sake.
Yes, that one. Basically saying, yes. Essentially describing this situation. You arrive at the Chantry and the place is looking sealed up. It looks like it's been abandoned.
Give me a second. I'm going to find the actual... whatchamacallit.
If you're referring to the rumor bit I posted about the Hermetic Chantry, I've just described what it basically was.
Ah, excellent.
Yes. What would Mara like to do? Jason, your sound isn't working. Evan, can you hear him? Because I can't.
No.
Leave the hangout and come back in if you can hear us, Jason. Hopefully he can hear us. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, take bets on what you think has happened to the Hermetic Chantry.
Dragons. Dragons everywhere, man.
Still no sound, Jason. Check your mic.
Give him a second. He was having this problem before you joined us, so...
All right. There we are. Yeah, we got you back.
Right, I don't know what happened there. So, anyway. Yeah, is there any mundane means that Mara can attempt to use in order to try and figure out, if there's anyone there? Like telephone, ever?
If you ring up, you'll basically get a set of you ring up the Magister's number. You get an answering machine message basically saying, the number you have dialed has not been recognized. Please hang up and try again.
Mm-hmm.
And you just get that over and over again.
Okay.
You, when you look through the window, you just see the place looks dark. There's a few small side tables you can see that have been covered in sheets. Looks like the place is abandoned.
All right.
You haven't yet tried the door, though.
Obviously.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any particular... Can I just check the door just to see if there's anything, any mundane or otherwise supernatural?
Question, are you going to look at it through sight or are you going to touch it?
We're not going to touch it.
Right. When you look at it through magical sight, there's a very weak... Okay, what sights are you putting up?
Prime.
Prime, there's a very weak. It seems to be some sort of latent spell based on the Prime signature, but without using other sites, you can't be certain.
Okay. I'm not sure what else.
You will note
Mind.
there is a latency effect on the door. You will notice the fact that there is no protective warding that can be perceived on the door. It's not going to blow you backwards if you touch the door handle.
Oh yeah, there's no obvious wards or anything like that. And incidentally, you know full well that there were wards on this door about 4 days ago. Yeah, the whole building had been warded against anyone except who wasn't meant to be there. That's why you had to be let in through the door if you weren't a hermetic.
Okay.
They've all gone.
All right. What does my common sense tell me?
The common sense tells you there's no obvious enchantment. That latent thing could be something, but in these circumstances, it would probably be more powerful if it was going to kill you. So,
also, the city's on high alert. It is. I mean, has your character seen any of the Harry Potter movies? This is going to sound like a really weird bit of common sense, but it's common sense.
Mara probably would have, but her handler has never watched Harry Potter. So
you've never
any reference that you make is going to be lost on me.
That's fair. Basically, sometimes they do things like hiding in plain sight. It's very possible what you're perceiving on the outside is not what is happening on the inside.
Yeah, so it might just be wise to just hold the door open and see if it opens. Because that's a mundane trick you haven't tried.
Okay, I'll buy it.
You're gonna put your hand on the door?
I just said yeah.
Right. Okay. As soon as your hand goes on the handle, you feel a warm sensation in your hand and arm. And through the window, before you even pull the door, you can see a sudden light appearing under one of the doors inside. Once you're inside, that light continues, and you can hear the sound of bustling people on the other side of the door.
Okay. Mara will cautiously enter into the building and shut the door behind her.
Right. As I say, the place seems abandoned, apart from that one internal door that seems to have light coming out from underneath it.
Okay, she'll go over to there.
Okay. You're going to knock on it, just open it straight away.
Just knock on it. She'll knock on it.
Okay. After about a minute or so, door, basically a small panel opens up on the door. It's very well disguised, but it opens up a little hatch. And you see a little man, not Magister Croshaw, just a little man. A little man. He looks very wizened. Nods. He looks at you, blinks, nods, closes the hatch. A couple of seconds later, door swings open. The man's nowhere to be seen. He just seems to have vanished. And the door's sitting there open for you to walk through.
Okay. And she'll walk through.
The initial bit looks a little bit like a hobbit hole. It's round plastered walls with wooden circular supports. But as you get a little way along, you start going further down, and it looks very, very long. This round building, and you realize very quickly you've probably gone outside of the chantry in a weird way. There's obviously some correspondence fuckery going on here. And then you get to a certain point, and you can see what's basically relatively badly plastered over bare rock, like you're underground. And that will be, that'll be the moment when sitting on a chair, what is clearly like one of several reasonably large fireplaces, is the Magister of House Flambeau. Evan?
Do you know how fucking hard it is to get the damp out of solid stone? I don't. What? Oh, it's you, apprentice.
Magister, I apologize for not coming earlier, but there were issues which I felt needed to be addressed first, and circumstances and information has come forward which I require your and the other hermetic master's advice on.
I should bloody well think so. I'm currently freezing. Fucking hell.
Magister Crochet will walk over.
Sorry, continue on.
Magister Crochet walks over with an utterly enormous mug of hot cocoa.
Next time you want me to bridge the space between two fucking places, at least let me fucking choose the two fucking spaces.
This cave is entirely unknown to the technocrats. I do not want anyone being able to find this place. And besides, we're about what was it? 170 miles, something like that?
About that.
Yes.
Give or take, but it's an awful lot of effort to bridge these two places. I swear to all the archangels who sit in heaven, in the event that I was being bullshitted to and Mr. Wrinkle is not about to implode existence, I'm about to get very pissed whoever the fuck said he was.
Well, it was Wrinkle himself who gave us the warning. So as long as in the end, if they manage to avoid it, we just go back. It's not hard to move the place. If it turns out that
it's not hard to move the place, says you. You don't have to fucking move the place.
You're trained. If it turns out they can't do it, then Dublin ceases to exist, and we're still fine.
She'll kind of nudge Croshaw in the ribs, and she'll point to the fact that Mara is standing over there.
Oh, you there? He reaches into his pockets, pulls out essentially like a travel mug, takes off the lid and holds it out to you. It's a travel mug full of hot cocoa.
Thank you, Magister, but I am fine. My name is Apprentice Marurusu Bani Quaestator.
Ah.
We have met her briefly. She's I've been teaching her. She's quite good.
Yeah. He looks at them both very sternly. Miss Russo, has she been teaching you to blow things up?
She has been instructing me in the practicality of how to use the Forces sphere, but I have found that such applications are best done in moderation and towards targets, or in situations where circumstances would dictate that such drastic measures would be less problematic than they usually would.
Answered like a true member of House Quaesitor, that.
Yes, a simple yep would have done.
Sit down, child. You said you had something to tell us.
Yes. And Mara lightly nods ahead and takes one of the seats. I am going to presume that the two of you are familiar with Master Siren of the Statics.
She'll look over at Croshaw and she'll say, he's the city's librarian. He's pretty wise on a scale of 1 to 10, so he generally, when he says things, they can be counted on to be relied on. What?
An ecstatic librarian.
Takes all kinds to make the world.
Yes, but an ecstatic librarian, really.
Myself and a few others went to his chantry or his library with the intent of making the best out of the knowledge that he had to present to us. However, what we came across was a scene of carnage, for lack of a better expression. We found evidence that someone had attempted to shoot Master Siren using some bullets which were infused with quintessence, with primal energy. When we finally found Master Cywin, he was alive. He is still alive, should I say. But he had trapped himself in a bubble with the intent of protecting himself from a bullet which was aimed towards his head. We attempted to discern the puzzle that would undo this effect, as they had created a series of coincidences, a matter of merely turning a grandfather clock. But unfortunately, one of the members of our crew decided to take matters into their own hands and did not heed to some advice which I tried to give them. Thankfully, however, we had someone in our group who was able to restore the damage that had been done. And in thanks, Master Siren had presented us with some information about the individuals who he believes to have done it.
And your sound's cut out, mate.
Yeah.
Apologies for technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen.
They're both technical and difficult.
Alright, this thing better fucking work now.
Welcome back.
Alright, what part did I get cut off at?
Literally just as you were saying that he was unfrozen and gave you information, you cut out.
Said something like ingratitude for.
Yes. And in gratitude, he gave us some of his books as a means of saying thanks. However,
that was
what he presented to us was quite concerning. He used the legend of the story of Atlantis as a means of describing this, but he believes that there are a group of people in Dublin who are responsible for the distortions in time. The group he referred to, according to the inscriptions which I found written on the bullets that we found, they were written in an ocean of the Father. According to Master Siren, he believes that this group has the intention of destroying the concept of time. The way he described this is he intends, with the concept of time being disappeared, being destroyed, there would be no beginning, but also no end. He believes this group to... They have to have some clock, or they are using a clock to make adjustments to it, which creates ripple effects every few days. I have had some thoughts about how we can narrow down the exactness of this clock, but I don't believe that I have the resources or magical ability to go to locations that I believe they may possibly be in.
You will notice Alexandra is always pale as a person, but all of the color has literally drained out of her face to the point that like her hands are physically shaking, which is quite interesting. This is a hardened combatant of House Flambeau, and she genuinely looks terrified.
You will notice, however, the Crusher is looking at you with it can best be described as a paternal grin. Like, you get the feeling he's kind of going, yes, keep going. You get
she will very calmly, her hands will stop, and she will say, wait, no, this doesn't make any sense. For the record, you're partially right, apprentice, in the sense that what they call the Lantian clock does exist, but it was split into a number of pieces a very long time ago. We have one of the pieces. We have one of, but we keep it in there. She will say there to Croshaw, as in intimating he should know what there is.
Yeah, at
but
that
we
point,
keep it there.
At that point, Croshaw will look down at her and go, "Have you checked it recently?"
But the people can't get in there.
Have you checked?
What did you say were written on the bullets, apprentice?
Sins of father. From the Old Testament. Deuteronomy, Numbers, Exodus.
There's another coincidence in that. I don't know if you... I don't think you were in the city to meet him. The former Magister, prior to our arrival, was my old teacher, Master Metz. He was a very wise and very scholarly individual. He was also responsible for the locking away of the clock piece. When they found him crucified in Temple Bar, the nails that nailed him to the building bore those as an inscription upon each side.
At that point, Croshaw sighs deeply and goes, "You really aren't getting this, are you?" At which point he will physically grab hold of both of the women by the shoulder and steer them to the door where the clock piece would usually be held.
Okay, this will involve basically you will hear Alexandra mutter under her breath as she will then snap her fingers. A deep gash will form in the wall. Basically a correspondence portal that she will step through and gesture for the other two to follow her.
Mara will.
Mara to go first.
Okay. You stand in a great circular room. The only way you can tell it's circular is because there's a light that shines down from above you, but it doesn't go to the corners of the room, save for minuets of light that pulse intermittently to each corner from the center. There is no wind here, and everything feels cold. Everything feels as if there is... You don't feel the world here, if that makes sense. It feels void of everything. And she will gesture to Magister Croshaw because there is a central point where clearly two people have to stand. And she will walk up there and she will put her arms to one side. He will likewise put his arms to both sides. And she will say, my name is Magister Alexandra de Nofre of House Flambeau, the Lambent Flame, the Hawk of, etc. And she'll list her entire list of names, and she will say, by the will of the Order, by the covenants signed and sealed, I request this gate be opened. And she'll wait for him to do the exact same thing.
He will do the same thing, but he will recite his names in a language that Mara probably... All right, does Mara understand Aramaic?
Probably might have some familiarity with the language. Maybe not enough to say that she's fluent, but she'd probably recognize it if she did hear it.
Okay, in that case, you will hear him recite his name in what is obviously fluent Aramaic. And he keeps making reference to being the servant of the unseen light. And at the end of that, he will say, by the command and gifts invested within me, I compel this doorway to part and to open.
You will notice on the floor in front of you, thousands of sigils light up and turn as if they are the great spokes of an unlocking, of an unsealing lock. Different ciphers key into place, and then they stop, each one shimmering with a vague white light, until a doorway creaks open in front of you, as if on massive hinges. It is rolled aside. It bears a sigil that Mara, if she can speak if she speaks Enochian, will read it as forbidding or warding, or thou shalt not intrude if you were to become more literal. And a great doorway will open, at which point the two magisters will proceed to walk into the room, and you will hear D'Onofrio say in very hushed, almost stunned tones, "It's gone."
And you will hear Croshaw's voice simply say, "I had a feeling. I told you so." And you'll just hear him start walking back out of the room. And when he emerges, he's looking at Mara with that faintly paternal smile. And he's actually gesturing, "Go on inside."
And Mara takes a few steps towards the doorway, and looks inside. Just examines everything that's roughly around her.
Inside, you will see dozens, if not hundreds, of warding circles layered on the floor in concentric circles, each one becoming smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until they go into a pedestal roughly around the thickness of your arm that has a tiny table on top of it. The table is, however, bare. However, you sense that each one of these warding circles could strip you of your life in a second if you passed through them without the correct protections or without the correct ability to pass them.
Do these warding circles look broken?
No, they look entirely intact.
Mara will then look towards Alexander, and then Alexandra, excuse me, and then to Magister Croshaw. The number of people that would be able to break through those wards, I am presuming, is very small.
Small enough to count on one hand if you're a bomb disposal expert.
The only one who could have traversed these walls, realistically, is dead, in the form of Magister Metz. I can only assume he took what was guarded here.
Have you never heard that he has tortured the information out of someone? He was crucified, after all.
He would die before he revealed any of the Order's secrets.
Convenient. How people only ever seem to say that about the dead. He will over tomorrow and say, "Apprentice, why do you think I had reason to believe that the object was missing?"
Because it logically would be the only means to create the kind of effect which I have just described with this Sins of the Father group.
And since, logically, assuming just D'Onofrio's words to be accurate, the only one who could have originally known how to get it was Magister Metz. Magister Metz is now dead. They clearly suffered a great deal of pain prior to death. What is a logical conclusion from that, Apprentice?
It would mean that either whomever killed Master... Sorry, what was the name again?
Metz.
It would mean that whoever killed Magister Metz had somehow been able to extract the information from him through magical or mundane means. Or we have a defector in our midst, someone who is not acting in the Order's best interests.
Very well put. At that point, he turns and actually straightens up and says, "Magister D'Onofrio."
Yes, Magister Croshaw.
From this point onward, as the senior magister of this chantry, you are under instruction to work alongside this apprentice to discover how this chamber was breached. You are to trace all sources available to you.
It will be done, Magister Croshaw.
Very good. One thing, apprentice. Should you find, and he turns to Mara, the individual who was responsible, bring them in alive if you can. I'm fairly certain that Old Man Wrinkle will be exceptionally pleased to be able to deal with these individuals personally.
If it is within my ability to do so, I will ensure that it happens.
Good. If you can, do it. If not, then their corpses will be proof enough. And with that, he'll pat you on the shoulder and just walk away.
Mara will give a polite nod. I was going to reveal how I believe we can narrow down the possible avenues, possible locations, if you would be interested in listening.
It would seem as though I have all the time in the world, apprentice, so do tell me.
At least until this group destroys the concept of it.
My. Is that a Quaestor who's just made a pun? You are a rare breed.
Merely a astute observation and a truth. If they do destroy time, then there will be no beginning and there will be no end. But the assumptions that I'm making with this, considering what Master Siren had told me, this group needs a clock, or has been making adjustments to a clock. It seems to occur every 3 days. Moreover, it would be logical to assume that they need a large clock in order to magnify the output of this lambent clock.
You have to understand lambent clock itself is quite large. I don't believe that it requires amplification. It is, in and of itself, not... How to explain? It is approximately, from what I'm led to understand, not small. When I say not small, it itself is about 20 foot in height and radiates magical energy. It's not something that could ever be placed in any kind of mundane view, or would completely be ruined via the consensus.
I see. Then that narrows down the locations even further. However, the problem with this lies in the fact that because this item, this artifact, exists outside of time, it is next to impossible for any of us to scry its location.
Contemplate this, though. It exists outside of time, however, as you've described, every 3 days an event occurs. I would recommend waiting until the next event and attempting to scry it and trying to see if you can sense not necessarily it, but where the ripples themselves come from.
That would be a logical choice to make. Unfortunately, my knowledge of the correspondence sphere is not sufficient for me to scry any further than, well, the extent of my general location. However, there are perhaps other more mundane means that we can implement to narrow down the location. Are we able to collect any information which is already present about the incidents which occurred?
Such as?
The incidents which occurred which created these temporal distortions.
I'm not sure. Out of character, Jason ever doesn't know what you're asking, if that makes sense.
Every 3 days, these distortions create incidents, right?
Correct.
These incidents would naturally have events which mark them, correct?
Would have events which mark them, as in what, though?
We had you had one incident which resulted in clock backwards. I mean, without actually going onto the forums. Sorry, not the forums. Without going on to like the scene list, I can't quite remember all of these ones, but I do know that there have been a few which have like coincided.
Oh yes, the first one was the losing of a couple of seconds, basically a second repeating itself. Then the next one was times. Then the next one was time, basically restarting a single minute. And then the last one was time slowing down for a period of time. So yes, those have been the three.
All right. Would we be able to, with those three instances, be able to narrow down when and where they happened? And any other available evidence?
I'm sure that it can be done, yes.
Then at least until the next incident occurs, that would be, I believe, our most logical means of investigating and narrowing down the location where this clock is located. As you said, it is not portable.
No, I would recommend that she'll kind of look down. The next calibration will take place tomorrow, I believe, if we go by the 3-day slot. So, in that case, I would recommend trying to find a group of magi who may be ready and able to scry the temporal causality at the time. Perhaps ask Master Siren. He may have a vested interest in finding those people who are attempting to kill him. In the meantime, I will compose a short list of possibilities for how an individual could break these wards, or indeed overcome them, as it were.
Very well. I will contact with Master Siren once again and request his help.
She will nod.
Okay. And Mar will do just that.
Awesome. Is that all you want us to do?
Yeah, that's all I can think of.
Okay, cool. In that case, I will outro, so thank you, player, for playing. Thank you if you ever have any watchers for watching. This has been another scene in Darkness in Dublin. We're TikTok, motherfucker.
Yeah, TikTok, motherfucker.